Who is?
Charles.
Yeah. Roger was going to come, and then we were going to talk to the skipper for a few things, and then anyway. So ready? I begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll bow our heads, and then I'll do this all in one, I guess. Lord, we thank you for letting us meet again this evening to learn more about and be more proficient in our mission. Guide with those who are en route on travel, Father. We also pray that those who are ill, you give them guardian angels for good health. But most of all, we just praise you in your glory. Amen. Okay. Well, let's see. Gosh, I got a lot of good stuff. Trying to figure out what yeah, we got some new people. Stand and what's your
signs in.
Yeah, do we have a new sheet up on the thing? Okay. Be sure and sign in on the bottom as a guest. What's your history? And why'd you join us or visit us?
I'm in the process of getting my private license.
You in the process now?
Yeah, so like 15 hours so
Good,
far.
good.
So really enjoying it. Looking for a place to serve. Found out about Civil Air Patrol, so checking,
Oh,
checking
great.
it out.
Great.
Welcome aboard. Hey, thanks.
Anyway, welcome to our group. And our policy here is visit us 3 times. If you like it and you don't like it, well, then it's up to you what you would decide. And then we get your fingerprints and everything and take your money, and you're back in. And then we try and get a tutor for you. You'll probably more than likely start in the back seat of the 182 that we have. I beg your pardon, 206 we have. And do some scanning work and what have you. When you get your private license, you can then become a CAP pilot. But you won't be a mission pilot until you complete a lot of work. I'm sorry to say. Okay. But anyway, welcome. You, sir?
Same, finishing my PPL and came to visit, see what you all are about.
Good, good. Well, I kind of briefed a little bit. We don't have a lot of people here. We have a lot of people that come online. Do we have some people online, David?
We have 2 right now. People are
Trickling in slowly. So we do Zoom on our meetings and with the camera and what have you. So if something happened, like I was sick a number of months ago, so I just Zoomed in at home, and it works out pretty good.
When you're ready, I'll give you a rundown of the aircraft, what's going on, where they're at.
Yeah. So anyway, welcome. And again, 3 visits with us. If you like us, we welcome you to join us. And once you get your private pilot's license and you get the backseat scanner and observer controlled, and we'll put you in the front seat. You can fly the 206. It's a good airplane, nice airplane. So we have a maintenance report.
Okay, so we've got 2 planes.
Come up here and do that, and then is our mic working, David? Mike, David, is that?
We have 42.
It's still in maintenance. It's coming along, so shouldn't be much longer before we get that one back in service. 216 Charlie Papa, the 206, that one is going to be a little longer. The cylinders were all sent off, and the pistons were all sent off, and it's a rebuild. So that's going to be a little bit longer. It's not moving as fast as we'd like. So hopefully it'll be back in service soon enough. I have not heard anything about the avionics.
We had the GPS there for a while. The Garmin was giving us a little trouble. Yeah. Any comments?
Yeah, which bird is assigned to this squadron?
Well, that's a good question. From what I'm understanding, that it's not officially assigned to us yet. 216 is here. But 887 is still on the books as the desert, Palm Springs.
Palm Springs?
Have to see if it's going to be officially.
So 216 Charlie Papa should be ours once it comes out of overhaul.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Overhaul or annual? Annual. What are they doing an overhaul on an airplane?
216.
Just the engine and then the annual?
Well, it only had 90 some odd hours, and they overhauled it again. So they said that it didn't break in properly, and it was.
Well, first of all,
Who had it for the break-in?
I don't know if it was San Diego.
don't trust them either. I trust Palm Springs more than I trust San Diego. But I don't trust the overhauler. I had problems with him when I was the manager out at March Air Force Base with the Aero Club. I finally sent the engine back to him. He exploded. Cost him shipping out and shipping back. I said, I'm not going to accept the books because you typewritten everything for a 2,000 hour engine on an 0470, when if you put those parts in, it would have been typed in instead of handwritten in. He didn't like that. I don't trust that guy. And I could hear him when I first called him in the background. Yeah, tell him we got that 2,000 hour on the back end on the shelf. You know, you can hear him on the telephone. So anyway, I looked at that thing and packed it up and shipped it back to him on a three-way conversation to the contractor in San Antonio. Anyway, that's my own opinion. There's good people and there's bad people. So anyway, but CAP, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, wants to go to the cheapest individual, but that's not really the biggest bargain because you end up paying in more maintenance in the long run. That's my own personal opinion.
Well, there's another that airplane over there right now. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is Chris, our vice commander here for Squadron 5. We got two new members here that this is their first meeting.
Oh, excellent.
They're working on their private pilot's license. And
Right.
I don't know what you have in store, so I'm just kind of holding class right now.
Yeah, sorry, I said this new job, I have to get back and forth from LA, so sorry about that, everybody.
That's okay. We won't take your birthday away this time.
All right.
So I was just going to kind of do an open discussion for, it's a good time right now to do some weather and what have you. We just had a maintenance brief and from Al, so we don't know if there's anything new on avionics problem, but they are waiting for the cylinders and it's still going through annual.
Okay.
That's just letting you play catch up here.
Yeah, I didn't get any updates about anything today, so that's normal. Emergency services, okay. Well, sorry, I'm a little discombobulated. Give me 1 second. Let's get Teams going here.
As a briefing, every week we have a different subject matter. Next week we have safety. Ron will be here for safety next week. I was going to do some here a couple weeks ago because I'm also in group, just like Mike was. This is very close. And so we support all the squadrons. So I have 10 squadrons that I do. 205. So we're kind of based in squadron, group, and then on wing. And that's kind of what we are. And now the wing will be going Pacific region, which goes all the way up to Washington. And then it's divided all the way across the state. Overall, I think there's over 500 airplanes. And they're split up anywhere from a 172 to a turbo 2. So most of the mountain squadrons get the turbocharged aircraft and search it. Aspirated and fuel injection just won't get you. Sometimes you try to make it. So that's kind of a real quick background.
All right. Sorry for my tardiness. Yeah, it's real life concerns. I'm First Lieutenant Christopher Younger. As you said, one of the deputy commanders of the squadron.
you could say I'm new in CAP. Joined the squadron a couple of years ago, but I also have been in CAP for 20 years, so figure that one out. But so I've seen some things. I've seen the old way we do it. I've seen the new way we do it. Today, we have meetings every Tuesday, 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock on every fifth Tuesday that occurs in the calendar year. We instead go 6:30 and we have a little barbecue in our hangar. Just kind of, we don't, typically don't wear uniforms and whatnot, just to kind of have a little get together. This is a senior squadron, so what that means is you have to be at least 18, but typically we like 21 and over, but you have to be at least 18. No cadets. We don't have a cadet program. But that doesn't mean you'll never experience cadets. For one reason, we need pilots, and we need pilots that go through the CAP pilot program. I'll explain that in a little bit. The part of the thing that we need to do is fly cadets. So every single cadet has, I think they're guaranteed 5 flights, 5 O flights, orientation flights. So we don't have enough pilots. Like Group 3 is low on pilots. Part of the reason I'm at fault as much as anybody. I got into the more administrative duties of Civil Air Patrol and didn't really put my pilot's license to use. So I do fly a plane. I know how to fly a plane, but I am not a CAP rated pilot yet. So, however, I can tell you everything you need to know about being a CAP rated pilot. Because I'm also the squadron's professional development officer, which means mostly, we also say ET officers. I think that's the new thing we're supposed to say, education and training. So if you're stuck trying to find something to do, don't know how to do something, have an aspiration that you want to achieve, I'm the person who's all of us can help you, but between Andre, Commander, and myself, we're the best persons to help you with that because it is our job. So, that said, since it is e-services, so every week has a theme, and this week is emergency services. The emergency services program is one of the pillars of Civil Air Patrol. We have cadet programs, aerospace education. Aerospace education officer is sitting right behind you. His name is also Chris, so it helps out really well. Very, very challenging position for a aerospace officer in a senior squadron, because normally aerospace, we think of the kids, right? The aerospace officers are typically more aligned with teachers in the real world and that type of thing. So he does a pretty good job of making it interesting for us seniors. Now, so that's the 2 pillars. So cadet programs, aerospace education. The 3rd pillar is emergency services. It's the primary thing that CAP does. We used to do a lot of search and rescue. Now you'll be hard pressed to find people who've done actually search and rescue. I think in this room, maybe 2 of you. So that's exactly the point. Now, I dug out when I was revising the squadron's website, because of the many hats I wear. I'm also one of the IT officers for the squadron. I was revising the website. There's a picture of this entire room filled. So that was the way the squadron was pre-COVID. We're not back at those numbers yet. We're trying to get there. But, I think back then it was 70 people on paper, 50 people showed up for meetings roughly. I think it was 11 crews, 11 full crews that were rated to fly. Yeah, so that was where the squadron was at one point. We're trying to get back there, but right now we've got a couple pilots rated. We need to get more of you rated. So any of you that are around 200 hours or better, you can immediately kind of go through onboarding and start working your way up the chain. If you're below 200 hours, you can still start working. And in fact, I would even say you should just start working on it, because just the way CAP works, it takes a while to get things done. There's always kind of prerequisites and things, and it just takes time to get through that part of the program. Don't let it discourage you, though. This squadron, and like I said, I've put together quite a bit of information about getting through the process as quickly as possible. We also have the director of operations for our group is in our squadron. He's our senior pilot. What we're kind of missing is CAP CFIs. That's really the big thing. I'm looking at Carlos over there. But yeah, that's I think if we can get one or two CFIs in the squadron that don't go off to be airline pilots, that would be great. But so emergency services. So what we're kind of known for, particularly, is search and rescue. This squadron does do it. We have, I know Terry has some search finds. I don't know if you had search finds in your time. Search finds are kind of a big deal. It's you know, it's rare we get called out. It's rare that any crew is actually going to locate something. So a search find is a pretty big deal, just based on basic percentages. So you've got a lot of knowledge in this squadron that you can absorb, to be a better pilot, to be a better CAP pilot, um, just be a better person in general. But that's one thing we do. There's also ground teams. So the cadets do a lot of ground teams. This squadron doesn't have a ground team, nor are we probably going to do ground teams, but they are there. And the reason it's important you understand kind of what they do and their place in the world is because we're often coordinating with a ground team while we're in flight. So that's another part of search of emergency services. There's also community programs like CERT. You can just do the community emergency response team. That's not a part of CAP, but it does help you with CAP because we do like to have people CERT qualified. We do also like people to be qualified for the California Disaster Relief Worker. That gives you priority handling. And people don't know a lot of this, but it does give you priority handling because your cell phone number becomes part of our disaster response system, and which means when they start having to, selectively select who has cell service and who doesn't, we do so. Yes.
Just for anyone who wants to do the CERT program, I just recently completed it. It is 3 days. You can always go to the local fire department, but it is 3 days, and it's from 8 a.m. to like 4 o'clock p.m. And it is a lot, but just be mindful of that if you do decide to. That is a great opportunity just for your own personal knowledge, but it's also good for staff as well.
Yeah, because our main thing is we're trying to be CAP as a whole. We like to help, right? We want to be able to assist a lot of different organizations, law enforcement, community response teams, county response. So that's another part of emergency services. We also do UDF. So UDF is when the ELTs go off, either because of a downed aircraft or because most likely a hard landing. We will get called out. It is kind of a ground team function, but Mike Swift does know how to teach people how to do UDF. In fact, I was working on my plane the other weekend, and the Corona Squadron came walking by my hangar with the big antenna. So it's a thing we do. We do get called out for it. It's not super exciting, but it's a part of what we do. Then inside the emergency services program, there's a lot of stuff to do, and without getting too far into it tonight and overwhelming you with a ton of information, we track all that through a system called Ops Quals, Operations Qualifications. Those things basically certify what you can do, what you're certified to do. Either you're in training, you're active, or you're about to renew it. So this squadron, again, being mostly a flying squadron, we are mostly aircrew, right? So, and if you're not aircrew, we do have other, duties and positions to have done, but typically we're looking for, aircrew. So for instance, I'm not a pilot. So what does that, I am a FAA certificated pilot, but I'm not a CFA pilot. What does that mean? Well, it means I can be a scanner or an observer. Everyone has to go through scanner training first. So that's a bit of a process in and of itself. The reason we fly those planes for search and rescue is for Mark 1 eyeballs. That's the reason we fly them. The pilot is a bus driver. The mission observer is a mission manager. The mission scanner's job is to find targets, right? So it's for pilots or people who are training to be pilots, the mission scanner program is very quick to kind of introduce you to and go through because most of it you will cover in your ground school. Then there's certain things like how we search, how we visually search, and that type of thing, which are a little bit different. But knowing how to be part of an aircrew, you already do. You've been to ground school. Then after that training, we do a little bit of quizzing. It's nothing difficult, but we just want to make sure that you paid attention for a little bit. But then it's time to go fly. Now, our squadron, when we have a plane that's not under repair, uh, we will be doing more training missions. But in lieu of those training missions, there's also what we call a SAR-X, a search and rescue exercise. The search and rescue exercises are for training our people to do missions. I'm not going to opine right now about how effective or not effective that is, but that is the goal of a SAR-X, is to train people in CAP to get the different ratings that we need to do search and rescue. Now, there's pilots and aircrew. That's primarily what a lot of people are doing, and especially in the squadron, that's probably what you're going to be focusing on. There is a whole other part of the equation called the incident command system, which is something that CAP folds under once we are doing any type of actual mission. It was created by the I don't remember which fire department needs to know this information, but it was actually a fire department method of doing of organizing multiple organizations, so police departments and county emergency services, and how do they all work together during one main incident? Well, it's called the incident command system. The more you start learning in emergency services, the more you'll be required to train in that system, because as a member of Civil Air Patrol, we do roll up under that when we're having an incident. It's not big, bad, and scary, but you do need to understand how that system works and where your place in it is, because as a pilot or aircrew, you will be a resource to an incident commander, and that incident commander may be CAP, might be police department, sheriff's department, emergency services. You don't know, and you don't really have to care. It's just the incident commander, and they give you mission orders. Yes.
I understand that the Forest Service, 95% of their incidents are fires. Are those operations under the incident command system?
I haven't been on any of those missions personally, but I would assume they are. Everyone who does county, local, or state level emergencies are typically in the incident command system. And then there's an overlay on top of that called the National Incident Management System that almost every state and municipality I know of rolls up into. Anyway, so through the ICS, what happens is, so right now I'm the deputy commander of Riverside Senior Squadron 5. Well, that's wonderful. What does that mean if we were actually actively on an incident? Doesn't mean anything, because I might be base staff. I might be a mission staff assistant, which just means I do whatever needs to be done, check people in, help people find locations, make sure that, sandwiches are getting delivered, seriously. Or that's more logistics, but as a mission staff assistant, which is the first thing you would do if you're not flying and you're at a SAR-X and you're interested in helping out, is being a staff assistant, and that's a job. There's logistics, there's public affairs, there's all kinds of things that we all have to do or can be part of to be successful as an organization. So that's all part of e-services. So when we talk about emergency services as a whole, it's like scratching the surface. I mean, you could just say it's search and rescue, but it's so many different things that support that one function. So, that's kind of one thing I wanted to bring up about emergency services. Now, you're both pilots, right? Or training to be pilots? Student pilots. How many hours you guys got?
I got like 15, somewhere between 50 or 20, I can't remember.
Okay. 70. And have you both have finished like a ground school, or are you kind of doing it with your instructor? Or part 141 or 61?
For
Your training.
I'd say
Oh, if you don't know, it's part 61.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where are you training out of SoCal Aviation at Chino?
Oh, okay. All right.
I just
So,
have to do my long solo.
so are
The
you?
weather's not been cooperating the last 2 months.
Yeah, it's been a little overcast. You're kind of getting ready for the end game, right? Have you been doing mock check rides and things like that? Okay. Yeah, that was it's fun for me.
He's just about finished, and he's just about solo.
Yes.
Just about solo. Okay, well, it's a fun time.
Tell by the hours.
Right? Yeah, it's a fun time. You gotta
What?
you gotta do the slam and goes. That's the that's kind of where you are, right? Like make sure you get the mains down first. It'll be fine. Yeah, trust me. Cessna. The high wings, like that's my concern is just flying the 182s. Like I don't know. I mean, I'm okay.
And you'll feel real comfortable.
I can't feel ground effect in a high wing because I fly a low wing aircraft.
Yeah,
So
you can. It's just a pendulum, though.
yeah, it's weird. I mean, I don't know. With us low wing guys, we feel ground effect. Like
I've actually flown them both, so I know.
yeah, it's like a giant pillow saying "Come on and land."
Low
and-
wing, you feel it, but high wing, you're just a pendulum. So.
yeah, it's
I
interesting.
explained that once already today.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I kind of had a time where I could have went and got all that stuff done and knocked out, but do not be disparaged. Like, if you're a low time pilot, I'm a low time pilot. I only have 110 hours, something like that. You can still be a capped VFR pilot. That means you have taken what we call a Form 5, which is our check ride. You do some training with a CAP instructor. And first of all, there's a couple parts of this. To get into the pilot onboarding program, there's two things that are going on in parallel. One is you're joining CAP and becoming a senior member, right? And that is a commitment to our organization, and it's nothing horrible. It's just, it's just that you do need to complete your level 1, as we call it. So the senior program, all of our ranks are based more on time in service, meaning time you've been at CAP, and the amount of cap education you've done, right? And we break those out in 2 levels, and it's 1 through 5. And at level 5, that's a lieutenant colonel. At level 1, well, it's nothing, you're a senior member. At level 2.5, you're a second lieutenant. So that's kind of, if you want to break down of how that works. Now, we also have a cadet enlisted program, which if either of you are military, no?
I was.
Was, okay. But if well, that's a good question. So that is an option. We don't talk about it very often. If you were enlisted, either active or reserve, or just went out, you can actually enter CAP as an enlisted person. So you can be a senior member and wear stripes. No one does it, but it is an option. So if you don't like the officer program, we do have an NCO program, and people have done it. It's pretty interesting because you definitely, people will kind of be like, should I sleep? Like, the cadets will be very confused. They don't know what to do. They're used to enlisted ranks, but they wear their ranks up here, whereas we'll be wearing, a senior member wears enlisted stripes, like normal enlisted. So I'd bring it up. But anyways, because I'm also, how many hats am I going to put on today? I'm also personnel, so I have to know about these things.
Normally a person's E8, E9, they're on staff.
Yeah.
And they're allowed to, more than likely will wear the military uniform.
Good. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, if you made it to that kind of master sergeant level, most master sergeants like being called master sergeant. So, you don't call me sir. I work for a living. That whole, I'm barely ex-military, so I know the whole thing. Oh, now you're hiding. I didn't even see you down there.
I was gonna say you should mention the quads, counter drug, and.
Oh,
Stuff.
I'm getting there. I saved the fun parts, for you got to preload with all the horrible, boring stuff, and then you talk about the exciting part. Like, why are we going through all this pain and suffering?
Okay, save the best for last.
Yeah.
All right, I got you.
15's launching flares next year. That's pretty cool. So anyway, so there's a parallel thing. Level 1, which is basically just get to know what CAP is, get to know what things you can do inside of a squadron, understand the structure of flights, squadrons, groups, wings and regions, and then national. Just understand what we have here, and what we can do, what our mission is. That's what level 1 is, and basic things like which uniforms we wear, and how to do a basic salute, that type of thing. Once you complete level 1, you technically don't have to do any more levels if you don't feel like it. We would encourage you to keep learning and keep growing as a CAP member, but you technically don't have to do anything. You'll be stuck at senior member, so at some point we'll be like, seriously, you can just take 3 more courses, and but just let you know, the requirement that we put on people for onboarding in the pilot program is level 1, completion of level 1. So you complete level 1, which is just really taking some online courses and, getting us to sign off on a bunch of things that you've learned. That's level 1. Then, sometime during that process, you will fly with a capped flight instructor in one of our aircraft, and they will assess how much training you're going to need overall. You might need a little, you might need a lot, but the cool thing is you pay for that first flight. It's called a self-funded flight, or a C flight, as we like to say, but you're paying for the gas, right? You don't pay for the CFI's time, which is kind of nice. Bad for growth, but good. You can always tip them. I mean, you don't have to. You can buy them lunch or something like that. They'll assess how much training you actually need in the aircraft. There's also some what we call a 70-1, which is our and get used to now referring to things as numbers and dashes. At first I was like, what? Just get used to it. But the 70-1, that's all our flight program and flight operations. So you'll kind of be expected to have read the 70-1s for both kind of a general overall how CAP does flight operations, and then there's specifically for powered operations, because we do have a glider program. We do have a balloon program. I've never seen it, but we have it. But Albuquerque, is that where it is? Okay. Yeah. Jeez. But yeah, there's a glider program too. So but anyways, 70-1 general, 70-1 powered for powered flight. You'll be expected to kind of read through those and understand how we operate our craft, because it is pretty extensive. Then you will take online tests for both of those. Just like, very similar to the way that the FAA does check rides, you have about 60 days from the time you take those tests to finish your Form 5. So they want that to be recent, and a recent proof that you've tested. A little bit weird, but it is how it is. So you bring the fact that you've read the POH on the aircraft by what we do called an aircraft questionnaire. So it's a Cessna 182 with G1000s. How many gallons of fuel does it take? How many gallons of oil? I mean, you've read the POH. You understand what the aircraft is. You bring all that to a test. You will be tested just like the ACS on maneuvers and operations, and generally pass fail. I mean, it's unsat or sat, I guess, if you want to put it that way. But go through the maneuvers, don't crash the aircraft, don't make the checker instructor mad. Congratulations, you have Form 5. Now, the most difficult part of that process is finding a CAP instructor in the area that you want to be in, and finding a plane that matches the schedule of both you and the instructor. That's going to be the toughest part of that entire process. We have tools to help. We've got a pretty cool little, I don't want to say it, app that's not an app. It's an app that's not an app. It's a web application, but it's formatted for mobile devices, called PRMA. And PRMA is it's a cool little app. I don't even know who wrote it, but it allows you to do things like find out who are the CAP instructors nearby, because we're Group 3, but we do have 2 groups that are kind of neighboring us, right? So San Diego, and then go on closer up to LA. So you can kind of look for an instructor and hit them up. You text them, hey, here's what I'm, I just got my PPL and looking to train, and blah blah blah. But the second hard part of that is finding an aircraft, because right now all the aircraft are in maintenance. So
not all of them.
Well, the ones that everyone wants to fly are in maintenance.
About a third of them that are in maintenance.
Including the cool Turbo 206 G1000 that we have is in maintenance. So, and then that. So let's know.
In 8 more weeks, they'll be all done.
Yeah, they'll be great.
There'll be 5 more that are done.
The scary part, I might get to fly my plane this weekend. So I'm, yeah, I was like,
Hey, where are we going?
yeah, great.
On my lunch.
You might want to give me a few hours to, shake it out a little bit,
I'm not
because, okay. But anyway, so the other thing that's interesting about the pilot onboarding program, like I said, so that first flight with an instructor that you can find, with a schedule that you can find that matches, and a plane that you can find that matches, because it may be a 182, it might be a 206. I wouldn't bother with the 172s, but you can. But you make that magic happen. You have that flight. You're going to pay for the fuel in that flight, right? You're going to refuel the aircraft for the flight time that you took, and plus there. Is that the only thing we pay for, or is there
Actually,
like a
no, the first flight you have to pay for
the
the airplane
the
fee and
hobs?
and the
Yeah.
fuel,
Okay. So self-funded, meaning both the hobs time
which is
and.
still cheaper than if you would go to a FBO.
So right. So if you try to rent one of these 172s, which I had to do for my flight review, it's $140 an hour or something like that, and it's barely even TAA. You talk about a 182 over at Corona there, or even at Chino. I mean, that's going to be $160, $180 an hour, and then a 206. Yeah, just get out the wallet, right? So for us, for members of CAP, I believe is it still under 100 for the 182s?
I think it's $88 for the 182.
Right,
Plus fuel?
and then the 206 is
Per hour.
106 or 7.
I think it's like 106 or 110
Yeah, for a
for the
T
206.
for a TAA 182 or 182 or 206.
G1000.
Yeah. I mean, so right there is the biggest kind of advantage of getting into pilot onboarding. Now, that's your first flight. We're so low on pilots, and Terry Pratt is our senior pilot and director of operations for Group 3. He will most likely immediately enter you into the pilot onboarding program, where the rest of that training will be paid for by the Air Force. So what does that mean by training? Now, there's a couple ways to do this. If our Turbo 206 is available and you train in it, that's wonderful. But the problem is, even though you've gotten your Form 5 and a Turbo 182 with a G1000, you won't be qualified to fly naturally aspirated, but a 182 because you haven't flown it yet. Right? Yeah. So there's some recommendations we have, and again, this gets into scheduling and how far you're willing to travel and how much you want to make it happen. If Andre was here, he could give you his story about his lengthy process to get it all done very quickly, which involved a lot of driving and finding where to go. But Magic and Unicorns.
And by the way, he's probably flying right now in Florida.
Yeah,
Because that's where he went. So he's going to fly a cap aircraft in Florida right now.
Oh, is that what he's doing?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. If Magic and Unicorns, what you should do for your first, training flights, you find the oldest, and when we say oldest here in CAP, that's like a 2008 or something. I think that's old by our standards.
Depends if you're talking about a round dial or
So that's what I'm saying. Like Cat 401, old round dial 182, which I think is a 2008 or something like that. People don't like flying her for some reason because she doesn't have the cool PFDs. But here's the good part: you get checked out in that 182, naturally aspirated 182 round dial aircraft. Wonderful. Air Force has paid for that. And congratulations. Now you're a Cat VFR pilot. But you've got more to do. Then you need to find yourself a G1000 aircraft, which I think there are typically more of those. But guess what? The Air Force is going to pay for you to learn how to fly a G1000 aircraft. So you get that done. And then you step up to the 206. Now, if you can find a naturally aspirated 206, congratulations. Learn how to fly that one, get checked out on it. Now you'll have 182, G1000 182. The G1000 kind of carries out throughout the rest of them, but then you'll be able to fly a 206. And then find a turbocharger of any type, 182, 206. Air Force is going to pay for you to learn how to fly a turbocharged aircraft. If you do it in that method, the Air Force will have paid for all that training instead of you having to pay for that training. So that's a rainbow and unicorn kind of thing, yes.
Why can't you do it the other way? Let's say you checked out in a 206 G1000 turbo. Can you do the same thing going backwards or down?
The Air Force will pay for you to check out on a 182, but that's it.
Oh.
I mean, if you want to maximize the amount of free training you're going to get from paid for by the Air Force, you do it the slow way. Now, like I said, that's Magic and Unicorns. You're probably not going to be able to do it in that way. Just it's hard. It's hard to get that done, but theoretically the path is there. Now here's the fun part. You've got all that stuff. You got turbocharged and naturally aspirated 182s, G1000s, round dials, 206s, turbocharged, naturally aspirated. oh man, I got to check ride and everything, all of these every year. No, you need to find the most advanced aircraft that you are checked out in and get your Form 5 in that every year, because we do our check rides every year. And as long as you find the most advanced aircraft that you can find, which would be a turbocharged 206 or the G1000, that will renew all your other endorsements. So, when you become,
You go the slow way up.
and then keeping it current stays pretty good. The other thing is when you get your IFR, which we all want to get IFR, right? Again, that's something that typically, does onboarding pay for that?
The IFR, no.
That's a bummer.
No. But once you're a mission pilot, you're allowed to train for IFR in our aircraft.
Okay,
But
that's,
you're not allowed to do it until then, until you're a mission pilot.
so I'm glad you brought that up because, so I said cap VFR, and even with all of those endorsements on board, you will still be a cap VFR pilot, meaning you can rent the plane and fly. Now, everyone goes, that's kind of cool, right? But you can't take non-CAP people in the aircraft, so you can't take it for the weekend and go out to, Vegas or whatever. Gotta wear a uniform when you fly. So, you have some limitations, but if you're just trying to build hours, it's going to be the cheapest way to build hours in a 182 or 206 of a TAA type. Until you get to around, starting to lose it, 100 and, I think, so cap VFR, there is a cap IFR if you are an IFR, an FAA IFR pilot that is lower than 200 hours. But when you get around 200 hours, so around 150, 170, maybe in somewhere in there, you take some FEMA courses. So I mentioned the Incident Command System. You take a couple of FEMA courses, which you probably should have already taken by now at this point. And there's a couple of additional things you have to do, but basically you will convert your cap VFR into what we call a transport mission pilot when you hit 200 hours. What that allows you to do are two separate missions. Transport missions, as the title says, transport mission pilot. You can fly that plane from point A to point B to deliver it, drop it off, whatever you're doing, or moving a plane back to the squadron or things like that. You can also fly what we call a hybrid mission. And a hybrid mission is boring holes in the sky in big racetracks. Because typically you will have an observer on board, whose job it is to run comm relay. So you go up 10,000 feet, fly in a big racetrack, and communicate either with ground teams or communicate with other people. And that's called hybrid. So once you get to TMP, that now you have more missions because someone needs an aircraft moved and someone's willing to kind of drive you out there, or you can arrange for how we're getting back. You can go fly a plane, right? So that's kind of cool. Once you get closer to 300 hours, actually, I think I goofed this up. I want to say it is, and I know we have it posted somewhere, but I think everybody took my cool things down. So let me.
On the website, it said 100.
I was just gonna say I'm gonna pull up the website and go with visual. Go with the visual aid. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. I know Dallas has seen this before. Let me see if I can do all this without crashing my system. That'll be interesting. Okay, good. That's up. Let me pull up that and that. I know, it's a process that we go through here. So if I go, it's the brand guide. All right. So I'm just going to demonstrate our own webpage because I'm proud of it. Let me share this so you can see it as well. All right. So on our website, we go to members and we go to the pilot career path and requirements. So everything I'm talking about today, it's a lot of information. You need to ingest a little bit. It's right here on our website As you notice, no logins to that particular site. And we start going down, and it's probably hard to read over there. Might be a little bit better. So let me see how much of this I got right. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Okay. Oh yeah, I forgot the most important part about passing your Form 5. You get to wear, not these wings, you get to wear the rings with the props in the middle. That means you're a pilot. This just means I'm a scrub. No, it doesn't mean I'm a scrub. In the middle, it's hard to see. Most people mistake it because it looks like they're propellers, but it's actually a little like, it's like a thing because I'm an observer. But the observer wings. But that's the most important part. You get to wear pilot wings. Okay, so TMP. Yeah, you're right. So, and I had to break this down because this information is all in our training guides and everything, but it's somewhat it's weird to kind of munge it out. So I think I spent a lot of time putting this quick thing together so you can kind of go through your progression as a pilot at CAP. So transport mission pilot, be a current CAP VFR pilot or IFR. Pilots with more than 100 hours PIC. So this is the other problem. So again, I have 110 hours or something like that. I don't have that many PIC hours yet because I was a student pilot for most of it, and then I've only flown my plane for like 20, 30 hours. So it's like I don't have enough PIC hours, and 50 hours of cross country, but less than 200 hours PIC. So weird gap here. Newer pilots. There's a transport mission pilot familiarization and preparatory exercise, FAMIN prep, as we say that in short. And when I was talking about those ops quals and our, the system that we use to track what e-services things you have done, that is what that's referring to, is that training portal. There's a couple of courses in FEMA training. These are online, pretty straightforward stuff. You complete all of those things, you are now a transport mission pilot. So what does that mean? You can fly transport missions, fly hybrid, and then sea missions, like I mentioned, you can go rent the plane and fly around in circles if you like. Then between transport and mission pilot, there is a transport pilot that has enough hours to fly cadets because we don't want cadets to be flown by anybody with less than 200 hours. This is the same. I used to think that's a strange number, but it's the same thing that if you look at the EAA Young Eagles program, it's the same requirement they have. It's the same requirement most 501(c) flying organizations like Pilots and Paws and Med Flights and all that kind of stuff, Angel Flights, they typically have a 200-hour base, right? So this is kind of based around that. If you're going to be flying a bunch of kids in your aircraft, the parents need to have some trust that we're not going to do crazy stuff. Like, oh, I'm going to do a barrel roll. So more than 200 hours PIC and 50 hours of cross country, but less than 300 hours of PIC. So again, this weird kind of band. You are currently a transport mission pilot, or you are a CAP VFR pilot who has attained that kind of number. Again, take the FAMIN prep for transport mission pilot, take the FEMA training, and then we have two different O-flight orientations quizzes. One is for non-ROTC, which is our cadets, and then there's ROTC, which is obviously ROTC, because we do O-flights for ROTC. Now, they come and go. I think we're currently in a go, or how many times like we do AF ROTC flights.
Yeah, it's kind of sketchy.
Yeah,
for ROTC,
it's come and go. I kind of swore I heard a couple of them lately, but yeah, they're not too often.
Actually, just lately, I think they're on, I don't know, 8 or 10 missions. So.
Yeah. So
Sometimes they have funds and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Different funds.
True. So you get all that stuff done. Now you add O-rides to that, and O-rides will get you the most hours. If you're looking to build time specifically, that will get you the most hours. Is flying cadets. A lot of them, we don't have enough pilots, don't have enough planes or pilots, and they're always chomping at the bit to get up in the air. Now, you are always the PIC. You sit in the left seat. This is not a training flight. You're not a CFI. You are there to give them an experience. The one that sits in the front right seat, you can kind of have your hands on the control, but you will learn over time. You kind of guard the rudder. You kind of guard the controls, and otherwise, you give them a little briefing on what we're going to do. You go up and you do the thing for 30 minutes. You land, and we do a little Chinese fire drill in the plane, and everybody changed the seats. So
Yeah, there's a pre-made syllabus that we have to follow for, each cadet gets 5 powered flights and 5 glider flights. So as part of their training.
Yeah.
And,
and unlike unlike seniors, cadets can actually apply to a flight academy, the CAP flight academy, and get into that program and get their FAA certificated PPL through a program at CAP. Seniors cannot do that. So unfortunately for us, we have to pay for it. Okay, so going on, then the only difference is there's also if you have more than 300 hours, and people will have this. You join CAP, you've got a lot of hours, but you're not a mission pilot yet because that's a process. But you do want to do all the O flights if we ever have them. That's just an additional quiz. That's pretty much it. Now we get to the wonderful, amazing pilot, mission pilot, right? So the mission pilot is, well, mission pilots we have in here. The glorified bus driver. Because I'm an observer. A little bit of now reality check here. So the way this is supposed to work is all of us are supposed to be trained to a specific standard, right? We have CAP CRM, crew resource management, risk management on how we decide what we're going to fly, and the mission management, how we're going to do the mission. It's supposed to be standardized training. We're all supposed to be training and being evaluated the same way, so that if you're a mission pilot and I'm your observer, we will operate as a team just like the airline pilots do all the time, right? The reality is it's not quite there yet, right? We strive for that. So what happens is a mission pilot has a lot of responsibility, a lot more than they probably should, because there's a lot of stuff going on, right? And not because they're bad or anything like that. It's just the mission pilot's job is to fly that plane safely, and execute the mission and put the plane on target. The mission observer's job is to run the mission and run comms. And if we have photographers or observers or whatever, their job is to put eyes on target or take pictures, right? So when you look at it from that standpoint, in a crew, the chances of you getting a crew that's fully trained in that method to do it, kind of effectively, not that great. So this is the part where I'm interjecting a little bit of my take on this program and what we want to churn out in this squadron. We want to churn out, mission pilots know how to fly the plane safely and effectively, and are comfortable, flying cadets and doing the various missions we can do. I also would encourage people, especially us low-time people, to become an observer. The training is very similar. I mean, in fact, if you're already an FAA certificated pilot, the training is pretty straightforward. But then you need to learn comms. Comms are important, obviously, because we have a different radio set. We're not using airband radios for certain things that we're doing. But a mission observer is the mission manager. That person's job is to run the mission. So whether it's talking to base, talking to ground teams, talking to other aircraft in flight, understanding the grids that we're going to be searching, like these grids on the ceiling over here, understanding all that talk, how to go to a grid, what mission are we doing? Are we doing photography where we're taking different types of pictures, and what does that mean? All of those discrete things should be an observer task, right? Because again, if the mission pilot has to do it, in my mind, it's lowering the safety of the mission, because maybe not the safety of the mission, they're lowering the effectiveness of the mission, because instead of just flying the plane and keeping us safe, they're now having to do other tasks, and those tasks are not priority. The mission pilot's priority is fly the plane safely. So if it's busy airspace, which it's SoCal, it's busy airspace, and we're trying to do a search grid, and there's stuff going on, and SoCal's talking, and things are, the CAP radio is going to suffer because mission pilot doesn't have time to talk to it. So I encourage all of us with low pilot hours to actually go mission scanner, which we have to, and then go mission observer while we're building that time. Because by the time you become a mission pilot, what that will mean is I don't want mission pilots doing observer tasks, but it means when you have observers in the plane with you, you will be able to help them and be able to kind of increase their skill set, because a lot of times they're not going to have that skill set. It's just an unfortunate side effect of how we do it. So all that said, mission pilots. So if you've got more than 200 hours PIC and 50 hours across country, and you're currently a transport mission pilot, And like you said, you see here, current mission scanner. That one kind of sneaks in there, right? So we want people to understand what it's like to be in the back seat searching for targets on the ground. Why? Because you will get sick. Uh, and knowing that, even us pilots, we get a little queasy back there because we're not normally in the back seat. So it's important for you to understand how the crew is behaving and what their challenges are as a mission pilot. You have to take ICUT. ICUT is our communications course. That is learning how to use CAP radios. We use both high frequency and VHF. You'll probably never use a high frequency anytime soon, but the VHF radios and repeater systems and how they work, you need to understand that. And then the problem that a lot of pilots have is we're taught how to use pilot speak, right? And we're pilots, we know how to talk that way. But CAP radios, we use pro words, which are different. So, typically when we'd say Riverside Tower, Riverside Tower cleared left base runway 27, right? That's not how we do it in CAP. It is, it's ICC CAP 443, and then you wait for acknowledgement, and then, it's a much slower pace. We don't say over and out because people will laugh at you. I mean, it's so different. Then you have to start taking, you should already be taking CAP 117. There's 117, 116. These are all emergency services training. They're very quick, but it's to introduce you to what our basic mission in emergency services is. There's more FEMA training, as you can see there. It's online. And then there's a mission pilot FAM and prep, as there always should be. Now, that's all kind of prerequisite. That Form 91 is going to be where the rubber meets the road. The Form 91, and obviously I haven't taken it, but I've seen it done. I've seen people doing them. You need to understand how CAP does search and rescue, and stick and rudder, because we have all the wonderful tools. We got G1000s, all that kind of neat stuff. But how do you box out a grid, and how do you fly a grid pattern and do wind correction and standard turns and all that type of stuff? That's what a mission pilot has to be able to do. Now, how often do we actually do it? We don't. Now, not that much, but knowing how to control the aircraft when it's low and slow and be very accurate with where the aircraft is and putting it on target, that is something that we do. So that's why our photography product, I guess we call them our product, and it's a deliverable that we're taking pictures of fires or structures or things like that. Knowing how to put the plane on target and orient the plane, because this isn't just, cruise around in circle flying that mission pilots do. When I got my mission observer, we were also doing an aerial photographer in the back, and that involved doing a lot of very interesting slipping of the aircraft to put it into position to take a good picture. So your stick and rudder skills will be put to the test on your Form 91, and I think it normally, I think around here, your kind of final is doing the short field takeoff or short field landing over at Fallbrook. So if you haven't been to Fallbrook, we call it the SS Fallbrook because it's like landing on an aircraft carrier. So be ready for that. And Cessna's float. So be ready for all that. And there's a few other things after you make mission pilot, because even though you're a mission pilot, notice the wording here. You're cleared for CAP SAR missions below 7,500 feet density altitude. Density altitude. So hopefully you've all finished ground school. So it's hot today. Your ceiling today is probably 5,000 feet, right? So that's a bit limiting. So, oh man, that sucks. So how do you get out of that? Well, we do what's called a Mountain Fury course where we teach mountain flying. Because there are specific dangers and things that you need to be aware of for mountain flying. And once you complete that course, it unlocks your abilities to fly above 75,000 feet density altitude. Now, you're getting down to the fun stuff, because mountain qualified is pretty fun, but counter drug. So when you're in CAP for 2 years or more, or if you're active law enforcement, I gotta edit this. Oh, poor Jim. Yeah, we lost Jim last year, so unfortunately. But counter drug, it's misnamed. We don't seek out drugs. We don't defeat drugs. That's not what we do. We are tasked by Border Patrol, Coast Guard, sometimes local law enforcement to do specific searching, or presence. I call it more presence because if you see a red, white, and blue aircraft flying at 90 knots at 1,000 feet off the ground, typically you don't do bad things around it because you just assume that it's somebody looking at you. Now, I can tell you, seeing a person at 1,000 feet, 90 knots, in the desert is difficult, if not impossible, if you don't have gyro-stabilized binoculars and that type of thing. If you use binoculars, you will throw up. So we're more presence, and it allows Border Patrol to kind of focus on other things if we're there. So if we're flying a big pattern in an area, Border Patrol knows that typically they don't have to worry too much about people doing weird stuff over the border, and they can focus on the hot zones. That's one mission we do. We do some Coast Guard missions where we launch really early in the morning to look for strange things approaching the coast, with probably packages on board. We'll fly around Catalina just kind of doing, basic, kind of not really search and rescue, but search because, looking for things that are amiss. Those missions are kind of special because the mission pilot who flies those needs to be IFR qualified because you're launching in over the ocean at night or in early morning. So no references whatsoever. Super time, just ask, RFK Jr. It's really a great way to fly. So anyway, those are, the counter drug missions. Now, the other things that you get to do as a mission pilot and as crew, this is also why I say get to be an observer, because we can't always take a scanner. The Cessna 182s don't typically have enough mission weight to carry 3 people. Because I say mission weight, because there are Cessna 182s, don't they carry a lot? Well, not when you put a bunch of CAP junk in it. So, they just don't have that kind of, load. So, be an observer. It'll get you in the plane far more often, especially as us low-time guys, until you get to be a pilot. And you'll get to learn how these missions kick off. Now, mission observer, mission pilots fly what she was referring to, WADS missions. So WADS, Western Air Defense System. Ever since 9/11, they've come up with a program to try to defend our airspace a little bit better. You would think that they would have done it before, but anyways. Now, sure, we have fighter planes. They're all ready to show up and do the nasty on people that violate, TFRs. Now, the way that works on their side, those are not typically the full-time fighter pilots. Those guys are busy dropping bombs somewhere else in the world. They're normally reservists or National Guardsmen. They rotate in from wherever they are at their home base, and now they need to actually work up to do a low-speed intercept because I don't know if you've checked, but the stall speed of one of F-15s and F-16s are a little bit higher than the max speed of Cessnas. So how does that work? Well, they come with a high alpha maneuver, which they have to practice. I mean, they're fighter pilots, but they don't do that very often. So when they rotate in, they usually get involved with CAP, and we are their targets. We're the turkey, right? And we have, a script that we go by. Either we're supposed to be belligerent or, calm or, whatever, or don't communicate, whatever. And they have to react to us. And they treat it, and we go out. Usually, I think lately they've been up in Fresno. We're trying to get some more down here. But they practice intercepting us as if we were a TFR violation. And it's one of the cooler things we get to do because, you're going to be in the air with, high-speed fighter jets. They will be armed. And it's interesting in the briefing because the briefing, they're like, yeah, they'll say things like, do this or be fired upon, but don't worry, you're not going to be fired upon. And you're like, why would you say that? And then you get next to one and they're high alpha and you see a bunch of sidewinders and AMRAMs on it and you go, he does know not to fire because that guy, he's not the one you're worried about. It's his wingman that has you locked up. So we don't have radar warning receivers, so you'll never know this. Hopefully. But if you get super lucky and you get into the night WADS missions, then you'll get the flares thrown out and all kinds. They do what's there's an FAA guideline, as you can actually download it if you have ForeFlight. You can actually find it in there too. But there's a whole TFR intercept behavior as a pilot, as a normal pilot. What should you do? What should you expect when you are being intercepted? That maneuver is called headbutting. It's called a headbutt. That's what it is. They intercept you and they headbutt you, which is one of them will visually confirm who you are and what you're doing, and they will try to get your attention. They'll flash their nav lights, they'll wag their wings, And if none of that gets your attention, they'll cross in front of you and draw and try to get you into a little bit of wake turbulence. That is what they do. And sometimes they'll launch flares. It's really awesome. It's fun. It's one of the fun things we do. And that's, again, I encourage you to become an observer because you'll get more chances to do that until you become a mission pilot. So there's so much more to talk about, but we're actually over time. Hopefully, I've made it interesting. Keep coming to the meetings. You got to go to 3 before you can sign up, because you have to know if we're not crazy. And show some commitment to coming to a meeting. But come to 3 meetings. You can join up. Hope to see you here again. Obviously, if you have questions, I'll be here. And any questions? I think Dallas, you had any questions? Or I know this is stuff you've probably all heard before.
No, I don't. I'm gonna shoot you a text.
Uh-oh.
But no, I'm okay. Yeah, sorry, I've been.
Just no pictures this time. That last one was inappropriate. No, just kidding. No, just kidding. All right.
Tell me on and did why.
All right. If there's no further questions or anything, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Everybody have a